Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the MoPros Technical Workshop. My name is Ariel Sasso, and I am the co-host and ambassador for the Technical Resource Center for the MoPros community. Today, we'll be featuring Jomar and the continuous validation of your MarTech stack. So what is MoPros? MoPros is the #1 community for marketing operational professionals with over 2,000 members in 1,800 companies. Our MoPros come from a wide variety of industries and backgrounds with expertise in multiple marketing automation platforms and a wide variety of marketing technology solutions. We have 4 different MoPro resource centers, including creative, mentorship, strategy, and technical. These are programs that we are actively doing in the community, and today we are doing a technical workshop. So MoPros resource centers are collaborative groups run by the MoPros ambassadors to create an ongoing series of online meetings and support all aspects of learning and career development for MoPro members. The sessions are line extensions on the MoPros brand and will revolve around different categories of skill sets that are required to be truly a successful marketing operations professional. Each group is here to help you grow in your career and education. You can find themopros.com. We're also looking for speakers for 2022. So if you're interested in presenting a topic, please email me at ariel.sasso@stackmoxie.com. We're always looking for new ideas. This is a technical resource center, so it should be around something technical. But if you're interested, please email me, and we'd love to have you present. We asked during the session, if you have questions, please make sure to put them in the Q&A, and we will address them at the end of the presentation. So now we're going to go to the main event. Jomar is an outside-the-box marketer who is naturally curious about new revenue technology. He has a passion for helping to build the bridge between marketing and sales through proper process and reporting. He has proven expertise in marketing operations, implementations, and creative strategy using a range of skill sets, including digital marketing, events, social media, data management, interdepartmental communications, business intelligence software, and creating and analyzing marketing data. Truly, he is a master of his craft. Jomar, we are excited to have you here, and I'm going to let you take it away.
Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And okay. What do you guys see? Do you see anything?
Yep, we see your screen.
Okay, cool. So basically, I'm today's.
Can you make it just a little bit bigger, though? It is a little small.
Okay. Is that okay?
Right there's perfect. Right
okay.
there.
Okay. I'll zoom in when needed. Okay. And then I'll go ahead and switch tabs when needed also. So today I'm going to go ahead and explain how I use Swimlanes to basically map out my different types of systems and prospects and teams and reports and data fields, and how I kind of organize my entire technology stack over Swimlanes versus marketing funnels. I think marketing funnels are a kind of a thing of the past in terms of revenue and marketing and sales operations. Now there's thousands of technology that are being made every year in terms of how easy it is to basically rent a server space in Amazon, in Microsoft Azure. You could basically create a product in 3 to 6 months. And so it's pretty easy to create a product. And now a lot of platforms are so decentralized. And also a lot of external teams, including assistants, personal assistants to do your data management, call centers that are being more prolific within the B2B space, meaning you could go ahead and hire a third-party agency to go ahead and do all your calls, to do your LinkedIn reach outs, to do your inbound sales activity, to where a lot of not just systems are being decentralized, but teams are being more decentralized. And now because of the pandemic also, there is a large shift in not just data change of job titles and making it more important to have a really reliable third-party data system, but also to have third-party and external parties, third-party vendors to be there to basically help alleviate a lot of the work and services that you need to do to function as a marketing and sales, operations team. And so what I do now, and how I basically manage a robust technology stack and how I scope out technology stack is basically use Swimlanes and use continuous revenue technology system to basically monitor my entire systems through in correlation to the prospect steps and the teams to make sure everything is working. Because when I used to work in an agency and when I used to work in a big global company, $1 billion company, one system would break or one workflow would break that was dependent on all my other systems working. It would take me hours, almost half the day. Or even if I toss it to a customer success to identify that that's not the system that was broken. That was not the platform that was broken. That was not the workflow that was broken. I had to go into the data field, basically incision it and pretend like a freaking surgeon looking at all the workflows that is correlated with it. When I noticed only it was the first step, it wasn't the UTMs were broken or the workflow was accidentally turned off, or there was another workflow that was on top of it that changed some type of data field I was looking for it. So now, as we have a more robust systems and decentralized platform, it's important for us to map out our journey in correlation with the prospect steps, which is I put the detailed steps, the teams involved, which is the marketers, external, inside sales team, the systems, the reports per step, and the data fields per step. So this is it's usually a 4 metric swim lane, and this will help not just you understanding your prospect step, but explaining it to your executive team, how important a platform is, where it resides inside the buyer journey, and which team is using the platform, and exactly if it's broken, what report is broken. Because if your data field is broken, I know for a fact your report is going to be broken, and you need to refresh that report before you turn it in or submit it to anyone else. And so this is what I do. I'm going to explain how I basically go ahead step by step and explain it. I basically am the reason why I'm so passionate about continuous validation is because I used to work in I used to work in the industry of cybersecurity, and they suffer from the same problem we did. Was they had so much cybersecurity tools. Like big enterprise companies had so many cybersecurity tools. Medium-sized companies had so many cybersecurity tools. They had red teams, purple teams, blue teams, where they're all working in different tool sets, and it's like they don't know if they're crossing each other, just like marketing and sales. And they needed a continuous validation tool. They had a continuous security validation tool to basically check the different types of systems, if they were working, if they were not working. We need the same thing in revenue technology. We have marketing and sales and external teams that are crossing each other, and where data is coming in, where data is coming out, we need to map it correctly. And so this is what I do. For detailed steps, for step 1, I basically see how data is entered, right? So this is detailed step is how this top row is basically just giving you a small summary of exactly how, like, the prospect journey, what are they doing? So the step 1 would be an example, like I would set up, you could be like, the prospect comes into an advertising platform, like demand-based or Inflo2 or any type of like account-based advertising platform that you might have. You could put that in step 1. And you could say, this is the marketer's job. You could put Inflo2 here, and you could put the type of reports Inflo2 would have and the data fields that they would have. So I'm going to go, after I explain what each one is, I'm going to go into an example of what it looks like as a whole, as an example. And the teams and external team, this is the second one. This is the different types of teams you would have. You could have marketers, you could have inside sales team, you could have sales team, and you could have external provider. Or external team, like if you have a constant syndication team, if you have an external sales team that calls, like a call center, you could put that here. Or if you have a personal assistant that looks at data fields, I use personal assistants to help with manual data fields sometimes. If my current provider doesn't I usually do a human verification for my data fields because I'm 100% not guaranteed an API field is going to pull all of that. So I use a personal assistant or a human verification person, and that could be the last step. So this is all the teams. So you want to put all the teams that are touching your data, and then or changing fields that would basically change your data, manipulate it in some way. And then this is the systems. This is pretty easy. I use a legend of manual, automated, and red API. So the red API indicates, this is an API that's going to push. Automated means like, okay, it's an automated platform, meaning like you have workflows, workflows or anything dynamic that's changing without you manually pushing in. And the blue dot means like, okay, this platform is really manual. Like if you are basically setting up a LinkedIn campaign, that's very manual. You're going to have to manually push, select the buttons. And then if it's more automated, then if the form goes if the prospect goes into a form, it gets processed through a marketing automation platform. It goes through a bunch of series of, campaigns where it's like a series of, change the geolocation into USA into United States, change the state from California to CA. That's more of an automated step. And then you're going to look at API. Those are anything coming in that's changing through an API, that it's being pushed through an API. So that's anything from Marketo to Salesforce. Salesforce is very API heavy, from anything from Marketo to Salesforce integration wise. So I would turn that into, red. And
Jomar, then quick question. So if you had something like a Zoom info or something that was augmenting data as it came into your system, where would you place that?
I would put that in automated. That would kind of be a hybrid of both. So it would be automated in API. I would just kind of put that. What I would do is basically put that right next to each other like this, because it would technically be a hybrid of both, of an API and automated, because there is different platforms with Zoom info. Like Zoom info just basically, I think they completed form complete, which is a way to basically use forms, and then they basically put in all the missing information, then send it to your platform. So there's an automation perspective in that, and then there's an API perspective of that pushing the right data into your marketing automation platform. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. That's super helpful.
Yes. Okay. And then systems report. That's a great question, actually. I just switched the fields up a little bit. The systems report would just be anything that platform has a report on that doesn't get shared. Like, or usually people have BI tools like Microsoft BI, Tableau, any of those really robust, there's a lot of BI tools actually out there. But there's individual system reports that you might need to look at that you're not pushing. That's just like very operationalized, that you don't really need to send to the executive team. And you could put the system reports here. And then the data fields that incorporates that, I actually am going to show you how I do how I manage all of these different systems, and show you the different data fields. You can basically just put a link into whatever you're incorporating. And the agency life, we had to do fieldology reports or whatever, where you put all the data fields and articulate what platform they're part of. But here you could just put a summary of what the data fields are connected into, a link, a hyperlink into your into wherever you host it. Confluence, Airtable. I use Airtable and I incorporate it into Confluence, and then basically, see all my data fields through that. So I'm going to show you guys what I mean in terms of having a robust, I just use this as a sample, but I call it revenue management system. And you can use a platform for this. There's a few platforms that I've seen. I like to use this one because I get to control the fields. It's almost like my little CRM, customer relationship management platform, but for revenue. There's a lot of platforms. I basically broke it down into the marketing tag categories that the MarTech stack group came up with, because I like how they categorized it. I basically, for the technology section, I just write all the technology. I categorize them. You could have this exact template after the webinar. I'll gladly share it with you in instruction. And then I put the purpose of the tool, the link to the tool. I just put a sample and remove for the purpose of being not showing data to whatever client or company I work for. I just changed it up a little bit and showed you guys examples, just letting you guys know so I don't get in trouble. I don't want to get in trouble. So this is I separate them from the purpose of the tool, the link to the tool category, the company's access types. So a lot of tools I put in-house, third-party, and group tool. So what I basically categorize this is that you can have multiple, like if this is used by a group tool, you can put group tool or in-house. I used to work at Capgemini where they would build things because they love to build things from scratch. Just, I don't know, because they loved it. So for me, like I had a lot of group tools inheriting that instance, and there was a lot of tools. I had I think 20 tools or something altogether. And then I had a different group here for admin stakeholders, anyone that's an admin here. And I wrote automations for each one. Like if someone was to be removed from the company, or the person was decided to go to a different place, it would send me an alert of all the tools that they basically were an admin for, that we had to switch roles. And having a revenue management system is really important because it keeps you up to date of all like the yearly budget. I didn't put the budget here just because that's confidential. I put the yearly budget as well. And then I put the renewal, when the renewal is going to happen, the status of it. Like, okay, if this is going to be a review, a demo, a POC, not live, legal review, active, security review, purchase of offer pending, signature pending, trial, and sunset. So I indicate like the tools that I'm going to sunset, the tools that are signature pending. And then this gives you a very good overview of all your technology dates. Also, I use this also to identify the demo dates. When did I get a demo with this platform? And then customer data access for PII information. In case you're using customer data information, with your privacy team or your legal team needs to know, I go ahead and click that. Additional notes in integrated phase. I also integrate the different type of phase. We use a waterfall approach in our company, and I highly recommend that approach to any other company that's doing technology, is using a waterfall approach, just because you could phase out, foundation step, integration steps into a company, into your different platforms. I'll show you that towards the end also, and basically how you would use an integrated approach to basically build your technology stack. I usually build everything from scratch. So I go into a company and I help digitally transform them from scratch. So they literally have nothing, and I have to scope out the entire year. And then I'll show you how I do that, and then going forward. And then next product update, I love to indicate what the next product update would be and the date it would be. And then really quick, this is the stakeholders. I just put examples.
Jomar, if we have a quick question, if that's okay. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you mind going back one step and just, do you mind explaining what's the difference between a group tool versus a third-party tool?
Yeah. A third-party tool is basically anything that's decentralized, that's not owned by you. A group tool is anything that's owned by a department tool that they've created. So that was particular from, an in-house tool is basically the same. A group tool is basically owned by a certain type of group, and it's not owned by you. In-house tool is made by you. And then a third-party tool is basically, anything like Salesforce is a third-party tool that's not owned by you, and anyone who created the tool basically. And you could be a third-party tool and a group tool together, meaning it's not owned by you, but it's also owned by a particular group. So this, for the whole essence, this whole revenue management system is owned by the revenue technology team or the growth team. I report to the growth team, so I'm part of the growth team. My title is just it's growth and revenue starting to get a little bit, phase out. I don't know who's going to win, but I'm part of the growth team. And this is as a perspective of, this is my view, my perspective of it. So this is a third, like Stack Moxie and Sales Intel and Activio. Those are third-party tools that I purchase. A group tool is if a different group made the tool, like if they made something similar to a behavior intent tool that owned by a different group. And then in-house would be like, I made the tool for my team. I could explain that further later on,
Okay,
in a session or whatever. If you have, I can further explain that. But that's the reason why I picked Airtable, because Airtable was, it's literally like it was made by Salesforce engineers back in that made Salesforce, and it's really easy to create a really fast CRM, but I really wanted one that basically managed all of my, instead of prospects and opportunities, manage all my technology, because it is a big feat. And then stakeholders, myself, and I put the company, all my information, blah blah, all the technology admins I put that I'm part of, the active tools that I've used, the technology editor if I'm an editor for a tool, and then the reports. I love to put all the reports I have for each tools and what systems and steps it's part of. And then just because we're going to be running out of time soon, so I want to make sure I get to the other parts. Here are the steps and data fields and automation. I basically, once I finish all of this, I go ahead and migrate this into the Swimlane. And so I also put all the link of resources here that I have. And then I put all of that in Confluence. So this, I basically embed this into a Confluence page and further describe everything to make sure my team and everyone knows, how it all works. And so that's how I use basically a revenue management system. I'll give you guys this and further explanation on like a webinar or something. I have a Padilla course that that I'm going to send to the community, and it's sponsored by it's not sponsored, but it's going to be a course that's going to be made public and free to the platform. I don't know if it's going to be free, but it's going to be there, and you guys sign up preset registration. I'll give it to Mike. He can do whatever he wants with it. It's going to be, yeah. And it basically breaks down how to do a revenue management system, and it'll be free. And you can basically take the template I've already been using, and I've been using this for 2-3 companies now. After I fill out this system, I go ahead and use Swimlanes. And this is the Swimlane. I've already explained the Swimlane, but I'm going to go ahead and show you what it looks like as an example from a CRM data point and like a pre-made version that I've kind of like I said, I took out a lot of this as an example, just so to be fair to the companies that I've been working with. If you can see here, there is a lot of platforms that this one, usually I put the journey here. This is the lead intent monitoring system. And then I go ahead and describe, how to use the platform. But you can copy and paste this. It really depends if I also wanted to add like a service level agreement. Like if I'm working with multiple teams and I put a service level agreement, I like to break it down by lead source, but then I have an overview of like how data migrates first and then break it down by lead source. And then if there's service level agreements per team, I go ahead and indicate that. But for the course of the webinar, I'll just go ahead and explain to you the step of how we go ahead and break all of this down into the data fields, third party, and then like I didn't put any of the reports. But yeah, so the detailed step is the CRM data is extracted and sent to a predictive monitoring tool. So this is a previous like clients I've had prior, and what they did was basically they already had a really robust CRM system and marketing automation platform. And so theirs was to basically use predictive monitoring to basically indicate like the predictive behaviors of their targeted accounts, and then how it flows into their system and how the different teams goes ahead and manages it. If you can see, the detailed steps would detail like what is the prospect journey or the steps needed to complete that phase. And then the teams are basically what the teams are currently doing to basically facilitate the prospect journey. Sometimes the detailed steps hybrids the team step just because there is no prospect part to that. This one's a little bit more robust as an example, just because this is the behavior intent. So the first step would be CRM's data is extracted into a predictive tool. So I think this is a little bit too advanced in terms of how I built this one. But the first phase is how data enters a platform, right? You would basically enter a data in through either Salesforce or we used Enlift at the time as predictive monitoring. But definitely it's like how you would enter the data first. And then phase 2 or 3, 4, 5, and 6 could basically be how you go ahead and manipulate that data and what platforms manipulate that data. And then 3, 4, and 5 would basically be how it's passed around the teams. Usually that's the current swim lanes that I've been dealing with. Is step 1 is how is data entering. There's so many ways data is entering now. It could either be through a form. It could either be through sales outreach or sales intel. It could either be through a Salesforce a Salesforce platform, like salespeople just randomly entering things. And you have to map all of that out and see where it's changing. And then what I do what's I think is going to be the next phase in marketing operations, sales operations, and revenue operations is including monitoring as a whole. Including a monitoring and continuous revenue validation platform, revenue technology validation platform, to make sure all your technology platforms are working the way they're supposed to. And that's, I think, the next phase. But this is how I basically go ahead and, map
Jomar,
out.
So do you recommend creating one of these for each of the journeys that a lead might go on?
Yeah. So for me, I would go ahead and, map out each of the leads, an overarching view first, like how data enters. Like I would do a big one first of like, okay, inbound leads. Like how does inbound leads come in first? So I would base it on like, okay, how inbound leads come in first. And then I would do another one of how outbound leads, like basically map out all how data enters first, and then put the lead source of how those enters first. So I would look at the lead source and then map out each lead source, because that's literally how you do most of your reports anyways. Like it would be, inbound leads first, because it touches a preference center, it goes in that I would use a preference center first. Like as an example, where does that go into? Then I would do sales operations. And then I would do manual efforts of like the sales team into like if they come in through Zoom info, if they come in through a manual sales lead, then I would basically do all of those top 3 first. And then I would go into the other lead sources that come in through consultation through an API. That's a very common one. Like if you are renting out a space, like if it's too overwhelming to do the detailed steps, I would put just the detailed steps, the teams and the systems first if it's too overwhelming to do the data fields, because it is very overwhelming. I've built like probably hundreds of these now, and it makes so much sense to my leadership team too, because then they're able to articulate, okay, how important is that field, that system into your actual like go-to-market plan. And I'd show them and they're like, okay. And then I would show this to the IT team and they're like, what fields, like for IT's sake, how are you guys mapping this out in systems wise? I show them, the one that I've already had, and they're like, oh, that's how all the fields you need for each system. I'm like, yep. And like, okay, that makes sense. And then I would show this to the privacy team and it would be like, where are they entering from? How are we getting permission? And they just look at the first row, the step 1 of how data enters, and be like, okay, we need to get privacy on this tool, and this tool. And so this aligns not just the revenue technology team, but the private security team, the IT team, and my leadership team, because they know exactly the importance of each tool. They know what data fields and systems are being synced, and we could basically start mapping out and scoping the rest of the technology. So
this is really impressive, Jomar. And I think it's definitely a topic that most people struggle with, and especially when you're trying to work across teams and across departments. How do you have a visualization of how each intersecting software and setup and like just workflow or processes are working together to create one goal?
Yes. And so like for me, like I go ahead, like this is a normal plan of like this is a normal on like I said, like
just a little bit bigger for us. I'm sorry, Jomar.
Go ahead. It's
Perfect.
Okay. For me, like I start every company now, like if I get lucky, I'll inherit some tools. But usually if I do inherit tools, I would basically sunset most of them anyways. So for me, like I get really lucky. I it's a blessing and a curse. It's a curse because I have to scope out entire year or 2 years of planning, but then benefit is I get to build it the way I need to. But for me, like having now, because monitoring systems are becoming more prolific, because the increase of technology is enhanced every year. There's hundreds of tools and thousands that get added into that gigantic. If you guys ever see those marketing technology mapping of how it increases every year, it's very daunting and confusing. But for me, like I still build very naturally infrastructure design maintenance plan. I always have an infrastructure design plan and a maintenance plan for each tool. So an infrastructure design plan basically just shows me how profiles are created, how designs, like how it's integrating with different systems. And then I always have a maintenance plan. And in maintenance plans, I'm now adding a monitoring tool per system that I'm onboarding to monitor how it interlinks between the systems. And of course, I do this is the whole marketing automation roadmap that I do every single time. And I try to go as fast as possible to, create profiles, teams, and permissions, all the objects and fields, the integrations and the form setups, the scoring and interesting moments. And I try to do as fast as I can to integrate these, because I usually give myself one, since I'm the head architect and technology person, that I onboard global CRMs and onboard global marketing automation systems. Like I have the ability to, because I'm the person that's the global head, to make sure I go as fast as possible, but to make sure that I don't have an individual person constantly checking each workflow. I use a monitoring tool to basically build as I'm building my technology stack, as I'm also building out all my workflows. So now I'm it's almost like a blessing that I have monitoring tools that I'm basically using as a way to build my technology stack. But at the end of the day, also make cognizant that like I don't have an individual person checking every system, right? Like I don't have someone checking every single system that I'm building for like, I don't have someone to check, all my Zapier integrations. I don't have someone to check all my Salesforce workflows. I don't have someone to check my Pardot instance or my HubSpot instance, or like, I don't have any of those individuals. Like I have people that are campaign managers. And I have another marketing ops person, and I have a data person, a data analyst, but I don't have an individual that would troubleshoot all of this. You know what I mean? It would take so much time. So
I do agree with you. I think that's a really important part that gets overlooked a lot, is the interconnections between all of these systems and how they're working.
Yeah. So I think funnels are great, but they're not going to be practical in explaining, they're great in showing like a very overview, simple way of like, how does content management, how does the different content channels you're using to basically nurture a prospect, but it would not show you a complex way in how they're interacting with systems and channels, because this isn't really like a person interacts with so many devices on your website. Like they look at your social media feed, they look at your ads from them, and like prospects, they look at multiple systems and multiple channels, and I look at the data fields, like what type of data am I collecting and how can I utilize that in the future. So for me, like Swimlanes, I think are the best. Breaking it down by prospect, teams, systems, reports, and data fields make my life so much easier, and I can basically just have a really big picture. And topping off Swimlanes with a continuous revenue technology system really helps me identify like all the different, one day I would wish for these to freaking glow, but sending an alert for me to be like, okay, this is the step that it's broken. Here are the reports that are going to change it. Here are the data fields that are broken for the day. That would be great, because I would build, the preference center first, and then I would build all of my lead sources using Swimlanes, but layering off continuous validation monitoring system really, really helps, because then I'll be able to pinpoint exactly, okay, my state like workflow is broken. It's at step 2. What report is it at? What fields is it changing? And then I can go to a monitoring tool and indicate, and it'll give me an alert saying, okay, this is the workflow that's broken. Go ahead and fix it, and then restart your reports so it doesn't mess up anyone else. You're able to be proactive instead of reactive into troubleshoot problems, and save you a lot of time. Also with your leads, like you're spending so much money in advertising. You're spending so much money in, you know, in driving people to the freaking platform. If your form is broken, your leads aren't really going into your sales team. And then there's so much turnover in our space of marketing ops and sales ops. Like, I remember if once as an agency, like they go ahead and hire an agency because their last person left, they spend 2 weeks to evaluate all the platforms that you have and be like, how are they all connected? And they still don't have a good way to explain, like, oh, this platform connects with this platform. It connects to this. And this is part of this prospect journey. An agency would spend thousands, probably like hundreds, not thousands, hundreds of hours trying to explain your entire prospect step. If you put it in a swim lane, put a monitoring platform on top of it, they could look at your swim lane, look at your monitoring platform at the same time, be like, okay, I understand how your entire prospect, how your entire prospect journey works with your teams, with your systems, with your reports and detailed steps. And it has a monitoring platform next to it. Dead ass, like, save myself a whole bunch of money off of agency work, and the person you onboard will save hundreds of hours onboarding. You know what I mean? Like, that person's probably very like as a marketing ops person, when I hire another marketing ops person, I guarantee they would save like the whole week trying to understand the entire thing, because it's all organized. And that's basically what the workshop is. It's just like showing you guys how I organize this in global billion-dollar companies, and how I help, startups, like basically start creating swim lanes for them and layering on a continuous validation system. Because if something happens to me, like, I literally got hit by a car 3 weeks ago. So for me, it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I started rolling down a hill. Like, that happened to me. And it's like, you don't know what's going to happen. And layering on a swim lane with a continuous validation platform helps. Because if I go down, the company won't go down knowing that they have everything mapped out and they have a monitoring system that will alert the team if something is broken. So
I think really powerful, Jomar, especially because as you get to start to see how things interact with each other. And if you do have a failure point, if something does break, you're able to see that downstream impact across the journey, which is something that's really hard to do without something visual like this.
Okay. Yeah. And so that basically, just to sum it up, I basically use a revenue management system that I built myself. And I really love it because I get to give my my C executive, the chief of growth, an idea of all the tools that I'm using, the cost when people are going through. I get to give him a really nice overview of how all the teams are being worked, and applying a continuous validation system to make sure that the tools I'm using is actually being used and it's being monitored at all times. And I'm actually using a monitoring system and replacing it with an individual, because that's how powerful I think the tool is. I'm using that budget to now buy more tools that can help us, instead of hiring one particular individual to just look at data fields. My last job, I legit hired someone to make sure none of my systems failed. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So I replaced that person with an actual tool that's way better, and I built on top of it. And so the tool that I use, just out of, I use StackMoxie's marketing testing playbook. This is the first thing that I use. The first thing I test is the preference center and how the leads gen goes inside the platform. So I use these two as the first baseline of how it works. And then I eventually add in sales operations, how the sales teams inputs data, how manually people put in data, and how it flows. So I create swim lanes per these two first, and then I do sales operations and manual implementation of manual input of data. So I definitely feel like I took a more hacking approach into this process, because I've been in cybersecurity for so long, but I use basically the methodology that is very similar to the MITRE attack matrix into cybersecurity. So I used to work at Attack IQ, and our competitor was SafeBreach and all of these platforms, but I use the same methodology as these platforms of breach attack simulation into revenue technology. And I realized we do have, it's across industry It's a similar industry problem and cross-industry problem that Stack Moxie that I was able to use as a monitoring tool. And I think it's the next evolution into revenue technology operations, marketing operations, and sales operations, because you need a full picture of your entire technology stack. And in companies, making decentralized tools is not going to stop, because AWS, Microsoft Azure, you could set up a new technology in less than 3 to 6 months. So it's not going to stop. And in order for you to keep progressing, you need to build a Swimlane and monitoring tool. And it also helps if you want to inundate new tools into your platform. You could identify where in the step it is, include it in the step, and then basically apply a monitoring system so it doesn't break any existing steps that you had prior. And you can self-isolate those steps. It's called regression testing. It's kind of over, like, I had to look up regression testing a long time ago and basically identify what it was, but then use Swimlanes and monitoring tool to do regression testing. So you won't be afraid to onboard a new tool knowing that it won't break anything in the past. So for me,
that's a good point, Jomar.
Yeah.
So, not to interrupt you, but I think this Swimlanes really helps you understand that when you're adding in a new technology, how it's interacting with those rest of those platforms and the data that's flowing between them.
Yeah, and I honestly add this into my my system design document and in my maintenance plan of like, okay, I actually started using monitoring tools as part of my maintenance plan for each tool. Each tool I have a system design and a maintenance plan for each tool I have. And that's like a cultural company thing that I've started to adopt, and I really like the idea. And so having a monitoring tool as part of my maintenance tool is really awesome, because then I can see how it connects to all the platforms and what's dependency. Because at the end of the day, if you think about it, marketing ops, sales ops, revenue ops, it's a dependency game. What data field prior, change that data field to make it. It's like the butterfly effect of like time, past time travel. You know what I mean? Like it's all data field dependency. And the people that are going to win in revenue technology, marketing ops is who can best utilize data and how to best be actionable in that data that's going to affect the revenue pipeline. And to me, I think that's the end of my presentation. If you guys have further questions.
I do have a question for you, Jomar. So how did you get buy-in for this? Because this obviously took a lot of effort, a lot of work. You have to work with a lot of teams. So how did you go about getting buy-in across your teams to get the information you needed to fill out to do this Swimlanes?
So for me, I was hired. I did this in my prior company in Capgemini. So I was in charge of both North and South America for Capgemini. And so I was fortunate enough for me to have a marketing ops team. Like I literally just inherited an entire team and I already inherited a sales CRM team. So I was fortunate enough to be like, thank you, Lord. I had an entire team of CRM, like admins and sales ops people and business development ops, business development managers that we all kind of work together. And I had the ability to basically not worry so much in marketing ops day-to-day thing, because the moment I removed myself from day-to-day activities of marketing ops, I was really able to be like more, I was able to be more strategic in the way I pick certain tools. I was able to be more strategic in how I go ahead and formulate and explain this to different stakeholders. So I had buy-in by basically slowly gaining almost like brownie points per each tool and how I combined it. And they're like, that makes sense in how you explain the Swimlane with the new tools. And I actually did this. Someone from had a contract job for a big finance firm, and the VP explained to me that I like Swimlanes. It makes sense. I added data fields and reports to the Swimlanes he gave me, and it made a lot of sense to him. And that rang a bell. I'm like, this is brilliant. Like all these systems are so broken and decentralized. That's like, if I just make Swimlanes now, and then I input each tool and create a system design and a maintenance plan and train people, it's the change management. I think that's what it is. Making all my tools, every tool I touched after creating a system design document and a maintenance plan and putting a Swimlane and continuous validation, the change management was so much easier that I was able to onboard teams and using the platform and launching campaigns quickly, that it made it look like I was a superhero almost to the company, that they're like, I like whatever the hell you're doing. It's working. We're getting the most bang for our bucks. We've never had, like, all the tools are integrated now, and I like this. So like, I'm gonna keep, you could do whatever, you could keep doing this. And now I was able to scope all the different tools, adding in behavior intent, adding person-based advertising, adding all these different tools into my bucket, and being able to use them so quickly and launch them so quickly that people are like, I like the change management. Because picking the right tool is great, but if you're not doing change management to basically train your team and to use it correctly into the correct process, it's like, what's the point of spending $20,000, $100,000, $200,000 if no one's gonna freaking use it or know how to use it correctly and know when to use it? You know what I mean?
Very good.
It's the change management, the increase of change management I was able to do for a company and show them the impact it had on revenue and the engagement it had per campaign really created my, like, the type of influence I had in a company. And it made me a decision maker. It gave me the ability to be a decision maker and gave me a seat in the table, because I now know the requests that they gave me. When people give me random ass requests, I'd be like, your random request is not part of our journey. Look at the system design document. Where does it fit? Like, where does your request fit in here? Like, or if it is an easy request, I'm like, this is an easy request. See it in the system design document. You can have a form. So centralizing all your requests in one area and decentralizing it and making sure you have, you understand where it fits in the system, just makes things so much easier. And so that's basically gave me a seat in the table. It's just now I'm able to scope out whole projects and how all systems fit.
I love that, Jomar. And I think giving yourself a seat at the table is a huge win, and doing it by using this document, which, by the way, will be shared. I just want to make sure everyone knows Jomar has been gracious enough to say that he will share his documentation. So when we do put out the video for this, it will also include a link to the documentation that Jomar has available. There is another question, Jomar, but what is the benefit of using Airtable versus Sheets or Excel? They like to understand the pros and cons of introducing a new tool to their team.
Oh, so for me, I use Airtable because it's very similar to Salesforce in a way. If you look at it, it's objects and fields. And in Excel, it's really hard to basically interlinked. Okay, this object is correlated with this object in fields. This one is correlated with this one. It gives you an automation platform. So Excel doesn't give you it gives you more robust automations and integrations, because the people that developed Airtable were from Salesforce. But you could even build an entire app on Airtable and basically use that as a repository. So it's that powerful. I just use it as a way, because it's like, it's easier to manage the tool. For me, there's a lot of templates already made. It's good for SMB midsize, but it can also be scaled for enterprise. And I'm not trying to, make you buy Airtable. I just use it because it's so easy for me, as opposed to Excel, because Excel, you're gonna need more formulas, etc. This one's easier for me to manage. It's just like, I just been using it a lot. So that's basically Airtable is just easier. It's basically an easier CRM platform to build. And instead of people, I replace it with systems and tools and data fields.
We do have another question. How often do you look at your Swimlanes documents? And I would be really curious how often you update them and how do you keep them current?
Okay, so basically I look at how I update them. I would have one for each lead source and an overview one. For me, I migrate each Swimlane into Stack Moxie as a monitoring tool. So each one would have its own links to Stack Moxie. And so that basically helps me alert if something's broken. So once I build a Swimlane, I will then go ahead and Stack Moxie and start slowly building out each data field and each integration. And then I basically have an overview one. Then each Swimlane would have a lead source and have a Stack Moxie link. So I basically would look at it probably weekly, just to make sure and because of Stack Moxie's alert system, I basically get an alert if each one of my lead sources are broken. And then, so I look at it weekly just for, just to make sure things are working. I usually look at Stack Moxie first, and then I would look at my Swimlane if anything changes. And then, someone introduced me a tool, like if someone does a request, because I have a form request for each tool, I would look at like, how does it fit in my data stream? Where is it coming? How is the data coming into my instances? How is it correlated with the rest of my instances? So if I get a request for a system, or if there is a new process that needs to be changed, or a new lead source that needs to be introduced, then I look at my swim lanes and look at the different dependency fields and how it's dependent of each other. I don't know if that answers
the question.
Okay.
That was fantastic. Jomar, you're just so good at this. And I think this is an incredible stepping stone for anyone. And we do have another question. Are you the only person on your team who updates the Swimlane docs, or do you have it split on who has permissions?
So basically the PM, so how my team is structured, quick update. My team is structured from head of revenue technology, myself, the head of demand gen, and then the PM. And so we three have the ability to make updates. However, like make suggestions. They can make suggestions. I do the update because I'm the head of revenue technology. I'm the only one that can just go ahead and change the swim lanes, because it's like, I know what's working and what's not. But if they want to make, like, they can obviously look at, the swim lanes and be like, okay, this makes sense. This is interlinked with Stack Moxie's link, because so each swim lane is linked with a Stack Moxie play. So they can go to Stack Moxie or go into swim lanes and be like, okay, this is how it works, dependency back to back. And they are part of the alert system too. So I made a specific calendar. I made a specific group on emails that would link into a Stack Moxie alert. So if any one of my streams are broken, it says stream 1, stream 2, stream 3, and it identifies the lead source that's part of it. And then basically they're able to, if I go on leave, they're able to articulate what's the problem and quickly fix it. So for me, like, I guess the question would be like, they don't have the ability to change if there's new requests for new systems, they don't have the ability to re-architect the entire thing. But they do have, if something breaks within that plot, within the lead source swim lane, they do have the ability to go ahead and fix it. That's it.
That was a wonderful answer.
Okay. Yeah.
Are there any more questions? Anyone have any additional questions they'd like to ask Jomar? We have about 5 minutes left. I know Jomar has shared so much information in this small amount of time, and it was just so awesome. I think everyone's excited to get their hands on those documents, Jomar, because they're just so good. And so I have a question for you, just personally. What made you think about this? Like, what drove you to put together such a great idea and such a great document for you to be able to put yourself at the table?
So basically, I mean, I had, so I loved when I had a break between startup and going into enterprise, because I did really well in startup world, right? Like every startup I went to did really pretty well. And the thing is, like, I was really overwhelmed with all the systems. And then there was one contract work with a finance company, and I obviously can't say the name because for confidentiality purposes, and I signed NDA, but like that I love doing contract works because, or like side projects or anything that gives me a new idea of a new vision. And this vice president was like, this is how I see my systems. And then I was like, oh, this makes sense. And then I guess like I had a C executive that realized, oh my God, like, like this makes sense. And he really trusted my vision, and he really saw the results that it made. And for him, it was like the results and how easy the change management was. And for me, having worked in a cybersecurity company that dealt really with continuous security validation and dealt with the same problems we did in the marketing and sales operations world, with so many platforms and so many steps and so many people working on different platforms now, because we have call centers and assistant people. Like that's more prolific now than ever because of the pandemic. More people are relying on third-party help. More people are relying on third-party platforms to support their lack of data. There's a data like crazy change because everyone's switching jobs. You know what I mean? So it's like that is crazy enough itself. The human verification system for that is crazy enough itself. That's an entire different webinar we could do. And how are you using data sources? You know what I mean? And data fields. But to be honest, like I was able to look at the big picture. If you're able to look at the big picture, identify where you're able to create more engagement and create more pipeline, and strategically input how those individuals are going to be impacted in the team and increase pipeline and you can explain that to your C executive. That's how you get a seat in the table. You're not going to get a seat in the table if you just go to marketing ops every day and you look at your smart campaign and see what's broken, what's not broken, and do the work of being a busy bee and making your campaign programs. Like, that's great. I love that journey for you. You know what I mean? That's not going to get you a seat in the table. A seat at the table is going to you have to be strategic. You got to understand the budgeting. You got to understand how these systems fit and correlate together. You have to learn how to communicate with the IT team, the private security team, and all those different individuals that are going to make a drastic change in the company. That's how you be strategic. Don't think you're going to grow your career just by working on programs and emails and landing pages all freaking day. That ain't going to happen for you, bro. It just ain't. You know what I mean? So it's like,
very good point.
Yeah, because so that's how you get a seat at the table. I don't know.
You just got to work the magic.
And make sure your plan, you can depict your overview plan to your C executive. And having a swim lane, having a monitoring system, it helps so much, because then it removes you from doing the manual work of always looking at which workflow is broken. Because if I did that, I would never be able to do the work that I'm doing now. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. We do have one more question just before time runs out. Does anything change about your recommendations if we're a small company with less than 10 employees, but still use a lot of systems?
Yes, sis. So for less than 10 companies, more companies are starting to be more proactive and, small, you can literally create a company in less than 3 to 6 months. I've done it. You know what I mean? It's super easy. It's not anything interesting. But for 10 employees, I see decrease the amount of automation that you're doing, decrease the amount of platforms that you're doing. So for less than 10 employees, I would recommend, instead of Marketo or instead of HubSpot, instead of all those freaking tools where you have to go back and forth, is consolidate your marketing automation and your CRM into one platform, and then have a chain of growth. If you have the money to basically keep going. A lot of companies and startups, what they do is they think that since they got a lot of funding, I got millions in the bank, I got them stacks, they want to go ahead and buy all the great tools, but they have no one to support it. I would consolidate that. I would get the platform Go High Level, because they consolidate all of the marketing automation platform, all the sales call, anything that's Outreach and SalesLoft can do into one platform. And then basically it decreases the amount of places you can go to, and it offers all the same features. And then once you go to 10 employees, you can go ahead, and if you go to 20 employees, you can go ahead and slowly integrate all the different tools that would get you to the next level. But you just make sure your team can support, and they have the expertise and the people that can facilitate it. Because having all these different systems, there's also a lot of resources and a lot of cost that goes behind it. So decreasing your technology stack and centralizing it into one for 10 employees is great. And then as slowly as you go on, then you start building it. But you just make sure, always remember that there's always resources, back-end resources that will make a team, that will make a process tick. That's why I use a monitoring system to basically help. It removes a lot of headaches from all the systems I have to go to troubleshoot, because every time you add a new system, there is going to be troubleshoot. There is going to be customer that you have to deal with. So yeah, if you have less than 10, I recommend choosing a tool, a marketing automation and CRM that's basically one and done, as opposed to a different one, and then slowly do change management to add different tools and start making those things. And if you do make sure you have all the data swim lanes for different questions and data questions you have with your business development team and your account team. So I would make sure that that's all your lead sources are defined, all your life cycles are defined, all your sales questions per stage are defined, and the different types of reports are defined first, because that helps when you're going ahead and switching to a new CRM and marketing automation platform.
Thank you so much, Jomar. We are at time. I want to thank everyone for joining us, especially Jomar. Such a fabulous presentation. We just thank you for your time and energy, and hope everyone has a wonderful day. And we'll send out there should be a recap coming out in a couple of days from MoPros with the video and the documents. So thank you, everyone. And thank you so much, Jomar. You have a wonderful day.